Why doesn't MTV play music anymore? A question people have been asking since the 2000s. But today there's an even bigger question. Does MTV even exist anymore? It was the channel that revolutionized the music industry, yet today it's just a shadow of its former self. People once shouted, "I want my MTV!" Now millions are tuning out. Where did it all go wrong? Join us on today's episode of The Infographic Show, The Reason MTV Failed. You're flipping through the channels for the first time in ages, forced into this relic of the past because your internet and streaming services are down. As you mindlessly scroll, something makes you stop cold. Your jaw drops. MTV? MTV is still around? At first, a wave of nostalgia hits you. You remember the days when MTV was always on in the background, blasting music videos, shaping pop culture. You wait, hoping to relive a piece of that era, but then you see what's actually on. The channel is almost unrecognizable, a fading relic of its former glory. And now, it's failing. But to understand why MTV collapsed, we first have to understand why it took over the world in the first place. The music television channel, known as MTV, hit televisions across the US shortly after midnight on August 1, 1981. At the time, few believed it would succeed. A channel dedicated entirely to music? Sounds like a long shot. But then came its first music video, Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles. A bold, on-the-nose choice that sent a clear message. Music videos weren't just entertainment, they were about to change the industry forever. Up until then, singers and bands rarely created separate music videos for their songs. After all, why would they? Where would they be shown? Music was played on the radio, on records, and on cassettes. The term music video didn't even exist yet. At the time, MTV's programming was described by Time magazine as video records, current recordings illustrated by 3 or 4 minute videotapes. It sounds like an alien trying to explain Earth's music videos to their overlord. The novelty of music videos created an issue for MTV in its early years. It literally could not find enough music videos to play. In the beginning, the channel only had between 150 and 250 music videos. Sorry, we meant video records illustrating current recordings. And few of them were by popular artists. With 24-hour programming, MTV burned through its music videos fast. Before long, they were looping the same videos over and over. And to make things worse, top cable companies didn't even want to air them. However, MTV was given one last shot at success, a $2 million lifeline to turn things around. With that money, they launched the iconic I Want My MTV campaign, featuring megastars like Mick Jagger and the Police, urging young viewers to call their cable providers and demand MTV. And it worked. MTV got offered on most cable packages, got more viewers and more bands. Record executives realized that producing music videos would get them free MTV airtime, increasing their album sales. The channel boomed, elevating along with it the careers of now famous names like Michael Jackson, Madonna, and Guns N' Roses. In fact, many people argue that Michael Jackson's incredible videos for Beat It and Thriller, to name just a few, is a big reason why MTV skyrocketed in fame in the first place. The older generations, for the most part, either didn't get the point of the channel or actively judged it. MTV at that point in time had a youthful rebel reputation. Craig Marks, who wrote a book on the channel's history, said, "They thought that MTV was a bunch of coked-up rock and roll fiends." And they were right in a way. With the biggest rock and pop stars of the era telling people to tune in and parents absolutely hating it, MTV quickly became a massive hit among teenagers and young adults. MTV wasn't just about music videos. It featured exclusive interviews with rock stars, live performances from chart-topping artists, and even launched the Video Music Awards, or the VMAs, which quickly became one of the biggest nights in the music industry. Against all odds and the doubts of the naysayers, MTV succeeded. So, what happened? Well, part of the problem is something you may have noticed during your scrolling to arrive at MTV in the first place. There are so many channels to choose from. In 1980, a year before MTV's debut, there were 28 cable channels. As of 2022, there were 126 cable channels, including the Cowboy Channel, focused on rodeos and Western sports, and Fuse, the channel that airs TV shows no one's ever heard of. Alan Hunter, one of the original MTV VJs, video jockeys, says the cable world exploded in the 90s. MTV had to change because there did become a lot of competition for eyeballs. You couldn't continue to just peddle the same thing. MTV wasn't just facing more competition in general, it was facing new music channels too. VH1, Video Hits 1, launched in 1985, targeting a slightly older audience. Meanwhile, Country Music Television, CMT, debuted in 1983, catering specifically to country fans. Back to you looking at MTV waiting for a music video to appear to see what the kids are listening to these days. So you wait, and you wait, and you wait. You press the guide button to check where the next music video block is coming up, but instead you see hour after hour of a single show, ridiculousness, sprinkled in between reality shows like The Challenge. When did all these reality and comedy shows appear? What happened to the music? The fact that MTV no longer plays music, or much music at least, as we'll get to soon, has become a punchline. As early as 2004, the band Bowling for Soup sang a song called 1985 that says back then there was U2 and Blondie and music still on MTV. So clearly, MTV had been phasing out music videos for a while. In 2000, the channel still played 8 hours of music a day, but by 2008, that number had gone down to 3 hours per day. But why would they turn their back on the branding that made them famous? Well, for the same reason your favorite social media and tech companies have all gone downhill: money. MTV's original business model turned out to be the source of its undoing. Besides the birth of competing networks and even music channels, MTV relied on amazing videos by great chart-topping artists. But that made the model really unstable. What happened when Van Halen, Michael Jackson, or Madonna hadn't dropped a new hit music video because they were busy working on their next album? A process that often took years. Well, the channel had to play less popular and less well-known artists. And a lot of less popular artists also didn't necessarily have the money to produce extravagant music videos. So it narrowed down the available choices. Ratings and ad dollars would go down for a while, just as they would shoot up after the release of Bon Jovi's latest video. Record labels, never known for their generosity, began to resent the fact that they were pouring money into music videos, only to then hand them over to MTV for free. Yes, it boosted sales, but it was still a gamble. Sometimes the video paid off big, but other times it flopped. Over time, labels became less willing to take that risk. But the real problem was the ad dollars. Each video was around 3 to 4 minutes long, making it very easy for viewers to change the channel every few minutes when a new one would come on. MTV also played many genres of music. A pop fan might change the channel the second a rock video came on. A rock fan could click away when a hip-hop video appeared, and so on. MTV realized that if they wanted to attract more ad dollars, they would need longer programming, namely half-hour shows. They started with shows that still revolved around music, like Yo! MTV Raps in the late 80s. But eventually, they decided to show off the real lives of the generation they wanted to attract with that most highbrow form of TV, reality shows. In 1992, MTV debuted The Real World, the show TV historians credit with causing the boom in reality shows. While we might look back on it now as the beginning of the end for MTV, The Real World was a huge hit. Though it had similarities to today's reality shows, the early seasons of The Real World tackled serious topics that mattered to young people. Take Season 3, set in San Francisco. One of its most prominent cast members was Pedro Zamora, an AIDS activist. At a time when AIDS was deeply stigmatized, Pedro's story gave the public a rare, unfiltered look at just what it was like to live with the disease. Young viewers across the country kept tuning in, not just for the drama, but for real human stories. But eventually, to keep the ratings up, producers tried to put together casts and situations that would create more and more drama. Meaning every season devolved further into the kind of reality shows we love to hate today. And best of all, reality programming was cheap. It turns out you don't need much money to record people lacking therapy and sleep and making terrible decisions. Now, to be fair to MTV, those weren't just decisions based on greed. It was running a business, and that business had to stay afloat. As former MTV producer Michael Alex says, "There's the cultural loss versus MTV was an ongoing business trying to survive. The channel hung on as long as it could to music. Since MTV was now making money with reality shows and playing less and less music, its original appeal started to disappear. The channel drifted so far from its musically oriented past that on February 8, 2010, they removed the words music television from their logo entirely. The decline from showcasing Kurt Cobain's unplugged performance to prestigious shows like Teen Mom and Jersey Shore was swift and seemingly irreversible. So, you're still watching MTV, and you're waiting to see if anything, any music at all, will air. Suddenly, one music video does come on. You can check out the latest acts, see what artists are trending, and the video is by Guns N' Roses. Your dad played them driving you to school. That can't be the latest thing in music, and it's not. But you're more likely to find them on MTV than any top charting artist today. MTV switched from being the youth channel to being the Remember Your Youth channel. It even launched a spin-off network called MTV Classic that plays music videos from the 1980s, 1990s, and 2000s, which means most of Gen Z and all of Gen Alpha are completely left out. And the lack of effort on the part of the network to appeal to younger viewers is obvious. In 2015, younger people were interviewed on their viewing habits, and many confirmed that they didn't consider MTV a cool option anymore. There's also the issue that Gen Z and millennials, the generations a music-based channel would most likely want to target, rarely watch cable at all anymore. While this has affected all cable channels, it's hit the ones that appeal to young people like MTV the hardest. A Hub Entertainment research survey recently found out that 13 to 24-year-old viewers spent only 16% of their time watching traditional TV shows, but they spent 21% of their time watching non-premium online videos, mostly on platforms like YouTube. In fact, YouTube is so popular that it's the first streaming platform ever to get over 10% of total audience viewing time, according to Nielsen's Gauge report. And YouTube is another huge factor in MTV's decline that we'll get to shortly. But the problem is that even the older generations MTV may have wanted to appeal to are tuning out. Nielsen ran the numbers for the 18 to 49 demographic, and they're bad. In 2013, approximately 542,000 people in that age range watched MTV during primetime hours. In 2014, that number dropped to 497,000 people, and in 2015, it ended up being around 361,000. We'll do the math for you. That's a 34% decline in viewership in 2 years. The trend away from younger audiences is even reflected in the VMAs, the awards show started by MTV. They've gone from a star-studded, highly watched show to oh, hey, are they still doing the VMAs? The last VMAs held in 2024 were mostly a tribute to bands and musicians that hit peak popularity 15 to 30 years ago. The Red Hot Chili Peppers, LL Cool J, and Busta Rhymes, just to name a few. As one Vox article states, for a brand that once represented the freshness of youth culture, it seems to be frozen in time. So, what about today's hottest artists? Where are they? Well, it's a reflection of how low opinions of the VMAs are, that in 2020, chart-topping acts like Billie Eilish, Harry Styles, and Megan Thee Stallion don't even show up for the awards. And why would they? Their target demographics aren't watching them, and they may not even know the award show still exists. In 2000, the VMAs drew a massive 9.85 million viewers, despite the era's questionable fashion choices. Looking at you, fake tans and low-rise jeans. By 2023, that number had plummeted to just 913,000. That's less than your average YouTube commentary video. So younger viewers have tuned out of MTV Music, and they seem to care even less about its reality programming for two reasons. First of all, Netflix is running a filming bad decisions empire that viewers can access at any time they want. Why wait around for the rerun of Jersey Shore that you have to tune into at a specific time? Second, a lot of MTV reality show sensibilities, like the channel's music, have remained frozen in time. You realize this when you keep watching the channel and suddenly the challenge comes on. You remember this show? It's been on forever, kind of like a combination of Big Brother and Survivor. As you watch, this guy named Zach comes on and he starts ranting about how women were only created to bear children and men are the greater species. Okay, maybe it's just a product of its time. You check to see when the episode was made. 2019? What? Well, changing attitudes towards society and marginalized groups, particularly among Gen Z, have made a lot of MTV's original programming seem, well, cringy. And the thing is, once the channel's reality shows set the tone in the 90s and early 2000s, they haven't changed much, even though social attitudes have. The challenge has been called out for the blatant sexism, racism, and homophobia of many contestants, often enabled by the producers and aired on the final edit. Susie Meister, a former contestant on the challenge, one of MTV's longest-running reality shows, shared her story of horrific misogynistic behavior on the show. She recalls that the men in the house routinely hurled slurs at female cast and crew members, smacked them, shoved their faces into men's crotches, and exposed themselves without warning. A collection of behaviors that today would be called assault. According to Meister, women on the challenge were routinely subjected to sexual aggression, unwelcome nudity, and unwanted touching by male cast members. And if they complained, they were reminded that plenty of people would gladly take their spot in the house. You might be thinking, but surely there's plenty of misogynistic garbage on Netflix reality shows, like Too Hot to Handle. And while there definitely is, those shows are produced in a different era, one where casual misogyny, homophobia, and racism are no longer brushed aside. As a result, that behavior either doesn't happen as often, or at the very least, it never makes the final cut. Producers today know that including it would alienate viewers, especially the younger audiences. This brings us to a big reason MTV is failing. You keep waiting for a great music video to come on. Each ad break feels like an eternity, and then it hits you. Why wait? You grab your iPhone, you open YouTube, and within 5 seconds you're watching exactly what you want. Want the official music video? It's there. Prefer a live performance instead? No problem. Whatever you want, you can find it and watch it on YouTube in an instant. And MTV just couldn't compete with the digital age. It all started with the iPod. For those too young to remember, the iPod was like an iPhone, minus the phone, minus the internet. Just your entire collection of music in your pocket. Before that, you were stuck with CD players. If you wanted to switch songs or artists, you'd better have another CD ready. People didn't carry their entire music library everywhere they went. The iPod changed that forever. People downloaded the songs online, so they didn't even have to run to Tower Records, another business obliterated by the digital age. So why would you wait for MTV to play the hits of the day when you could just download them and have them in your ears at all times? Well, maybe if you wanted to see your favorite band's new music video, it would be cool to wait for MTV to play it and then catch it there. Except after a few years, YouTube arrived, and it signaled the slow death of MTV as we knew it. Every music video produced was uploaded on YouTube and available at the click of a button. And unfortunately for MTV, its parent company Viacom didn't take the growing competition of YouTube or the internet in general seriously. MTV News, a cultural phenomenon when it started in the 80s, became even more iconic for its in-depth reports and coverages of the deaths of music icons like Kurt Cobain, Tupac, and Biggie Smalls. When YouTube hit the internet in 2005, it quickly started gaining traction among younger people. With an internet connection and a video camera, the idea was that anyone could make content and make their friends or much bigger audiences laugh on YouTube. Well, eventually, mainstream channels and news networks also started uploading clips to the online site, realizing they could reach much larger audiences that way, and especially young people. But MTV News waited until the 2010s to post their first ever video on YouTube. By that time, other major music channels were already established, and the network's YouTube videos never gained the audience they wanted. As of today, MTV News had 572,000 subscribers, but it didn't matter, because in 2023, parent company Paramount shut it down for good. Even when MTV News featured major artists like Janelle Monáe, Zara Larsson, Charlie Puth, and Linkin Park's Mike Shinoda, their videos barely cracked 30 to 40,000 views, and many struggled to reach even 2,000 or 3,000. That being said, maybe all is not lost. Some believe that if MTV finally embraces its true audience, the aging millennials and Gen Xers, it could actually boost viewership with nostalgia-driven programming. After all, this generation still remembers when MTV mattered, and they're also more likely to turn on cable. If MTV stops pretending to be there for the youth and leans into the nostalgia, it could make a comeback. And the executives at the network are coming around to that idea. In 2018, they relaunched the iconic Jersey Shore program as Jersey Shore Family Vacation. That same year, they also announced that they would soon be premiering The Hills: New Beginnings, a relaunched version of 2006's The Hills, the show that made Lauren Conrad and Kristen Cavallari household names at the time. And it seems to be working. Reality shows like Love and Hip Hop Atlanta and Caught in the Act Unfaithful gave the network its highest total day rating since December 2022. Meanwhile, the 40th season of The Challenge in 2024 pulled in its best ratings in 3 years, a 49% increase from season 39 among the 18 to 49 demographic. However, some argue that this ratings bump has less to do with MTV's new strategy and more to do with the writers and actor strikes, which froze scripted TV production for nearly a year. Plus, there's only so much MTV can bank on nostalgia. If it doesn't start drawing in new viewers, the network's future isn't looking too bright. According to the latest data from January 2025, MTV is the 42nd most popular channel on TV, with a weekly audience of only 167,000 people during prime time for that period. And that was one of its better weeks so far in 2025. So, it seems like the iconic music or former music channel may soon be looking to shut down forever. MTV isn't what it used to be. So what do you think went wrong? Was it reality TV overload, the decline of music videos, or something else entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. In the meantime, check out this video on why Starbucks is failing here, or this other video on why McDonald's is going the same route.